Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. It's been a long time since I gave my last talk. Some people ask why. It's just a personal thing. I'm finding that people in Australia or Sydney or the area, the religion or the deen of Islam isn't something that they nurture, something that they hold on like tightly. You know, when you travel and you find or you see people overseas that are more in need because of their financial situation, you find when you come and give them a little fragment of Islam, they hold on to that. So now we're living in a society, unfortunately, that people are saying, yes, we're Muslim, we look like Muslims, but they're very far away from Islam, subhanAllah. And you know, all of you, I'm pretty sure you all understand where I'm coming from. You know, you have two extremes. You have the individuals that look, you know, they wear the part, they wear it, the part of Islam, but the actions show totally opposite to what Islam tells us. Or then you have some people saying, you know what, I'm Muslim, but I don't have to act like a Muslim. I don't need to, you know, wear the hijab or do this or pray. You know what I mean? So many Muslims, so-called Muslims, saying, you know, I don't have to pray. Don't judge me. You don't know what's in my heart. But we say, how can you even think like this, subhanAllah? You know, how can you say that you're a Muslim and you do not pray? You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it a farad, not something that's a sunnah upon you. It's something that you have to do. And we say to you that if you don't pray at all and you reject the prayer, you're out of the fold of Islam. And this is something that you decide, not something that we can force upon you. So this is something that you see worldwide, and especially here in this country. You find, you know, some of the people that go through hardships and all this sort of thing, first one they turn away from is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first they blame is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You sisters, when you go through a hardship, what happens? Generally, makeup comes on, hijab may come off, you slacken away from your prayers, you know what I mean? And this is totally opposite to what's supposed to happen when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests you. So today, generally, we're talking about leaving a legacy, and tomorrow's story is going to be very, very touching. Tomorrow's story isn't going to be about a companion or a prophet. We're talking about an individual who only died a few years ago, but that's for tomorrow. So today, just to start with a small hadith of about the Prophet ﷺ. You have Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu. He said on the day of the battle of Khandaq, okay, the battle of the trench, and this battle was in Medina, or on the outskirts of Medina, subhanAllah. The companions in this battle, what they did, they started to dig a huge trench to make sure there's a barrier between them and the kuffar and the non-Muslims. Remember, the non-Muslims were over 10,000, the Muslims were about roughly 3,000, subhanAllah. So what they did, they started to dig a trench, and they came across a huge boulder, and the companions, they could not break this boulder, subhanAllah. So who do you think they went to? Anyone? They went to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, subhanAllah. So they went to him and they said, Ya Rasulullah, there's a huge boulder, we can't move it. We can't do anything about it, subhanAllah. So he came with a tool, he hit it, and then what happened to it? It became dust. Now Jabir, he said, when I was looking at the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, even though he had that much power and might, subhanAllah, but what happened? It became dust, but he noticed on his stomach he had rocks. He had stones tied to his stomach, subhanAllah, because he had not eaten for 3 days. Now we're talking about all the companions here, not only him. They hadn't eaten for 3 days, subhanAllah. Sorry, it's supposed to be doing live. So they hadn't eaten for 3 days. And Jabir said, I can't stand looking at the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in such a situation. So he asked permission. And look at this, look at the difference. When people leave certain gatherings, when people leave even their family or their parents, they just get up and walk out without any indication where they're going. Jabir went to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and he said, Ya Rasulullah, I need to go home. Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave him permission, subhanAllah. He went and asked his wife. He said, my wife, do we have any food? Because I saw the face of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He was in such a state of hunger, and I've never seen him like this, and I can't handle that he's going through this, subhanAllah. So the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Jabir's wife said, I only have a sa'. Basically that's roughly about 3 kilos of barley. So much, 3 kilos. And she said, we have a small lamb that we have. So Jabir said that I slaughtered the sheep. I cut up its meat, Meanwhile, my wife was grinding down the barley so that she could make bread. Jabir didn't leave his house until he had the meat in water boiling on the oven. And also the bread was on the side getting ready so it can be baked. In one narration it mentions that Jabir's wife, subhanAllah, she said to him, listen, don't embarrass me. Many of you heard this story before, subhanAllah. He said, don't embarrass me, because she only had a little bit of food. Remember, 3 kilos of wheat, by the time you grind it down, how much bread is it going to make? One small sheep, how many people is it going to feed? So she said to him, she said, listen, ask the Messenger ﷺ to come and 1 or 2 other men with him. That's it, please, don't embarrass me. So he went back and he went up to the Messenger ﷺ and he whispered in his ear. He didn't say it loudly. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I've gone home and I've prepared some food for you. Please come with 1 or 2 men with you. That's it. So the Messenger ﷺ, he said, is that it? In another narration it mentions, maybe we can have a few more people. And Jabir said, basically nothing. The Messenger ﷺ got up and he said to all the people, imagine an army now, yes? Imagine an army coming to eat just a small amount of food, subhanAllah. So Jabir went home before the Prophet ﷺ got there to the house. And she said, in a different narration, she said to him, are you going to basically embarrass me? And she said, I told him, or he told her, I told him what you had told me. And you just come by yourself or 1 or 2 people, that's it. And then basically she said, did he tell you that? Did the Messenger ﷺ tell you to bring all these people, subhanAllah? And he said, yes. So now the Prophet ﷺ is coming and an army is coming. And we said they hadn't eaten for how many days and nights? 3. Imagine digging. Imagine preparing for war. Imagine how hungry everyone was, subhanAllah. So here, the Prophet ﷺ quickly went into the house. He told the companions to wait outside. He told Jabir before he left as well, tell your wife, do not remove the pot from the oven, and also don't do anything to the bread until I get there. The Messenger ﷺ came. He spat on the bread and he mentioned the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Basically he blessed the bread. He opened up the pot, he spat into the pot, and he blessed the food that was inside the pot. Now here you have to think about it. How tight do you think the Messenger ﷺ was? Just imagine digging, being a leader, having all this stress on top of his head. And when we look around and we see the mashayikh of today, or we see the leaders of today, where they don't do basically much, they don't get up, they don't clean, they don't do much. You know me, when I'm cleaning or I'm doing something, everyone looks at me, this guy gives lectures, this guy does this guy's in charge of the masjid and all this sort of stuff. Why is he doing this for? Why is he putting himself down for? But you have to look at the Messenger ﷺ. He literally asked the companions to come in 10 by 10. He said, don't come all in because the house is small. He said, come in 10 by 10. He would literally break up the bread. He would put it into the plate. He would get from the dish and he would put the meat and the broth of the meat. He would recover the pot and he'd be serving the companions. Honestly, which leader would you say this? Which leader would you even think would come down to that level? Now we're talking about who? The Messenger ﷺ. So 10 came in and 10 came out. Now just think about it, a small shape. Many of you here may be a Lebanese background or know how the Lebanese live. Imagine a small shape, 10 men, they'll kill it. True or not? And that's without having fries and the rest of the stuff that you have on the side, subhanAllah. So 10 by 10 going in and 10 by 10 going out, until the whole army had eaten. Now this is a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember, these companions are going through hardship. Imagine digging and not eating. Imagine digging, not having anything to drink, subhanAllah. So 10 by 10 going in and out, and going in hungry and leaving full. Then the next 10 come in until all of them ate, subhanAllah, and there was still food left over. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he looked at Jabir and said, this is for us. So they ate. So they ate with the household and they were all full, and believe it or not, there was still food left over. Many of you think, this is just a story. But maybe some of you haven't done enough to see these types of miracles. But Allah have seen it. Maybe some of you haven't done enough for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see this with your own eyes. And tomorrow, this man that we're going to be talking about tomorrow, subhanAllah, he basically was put in a position and a miracle came. So after that, the Messenger ﷺ, after they had eaten, he said, look, there was still food left over, even after the whole family had eaten. He said, give it out to the people around you, your neighbours that are struggling and don't have food, and that went out and was given to them, subhanAllah. So now the question, honestly, think about this. You heard this in the narration. What struggles are you all going through? What are the hardships that you go through? Some of you may have problems with your spouse. And I'm pretty sure most of the people here going, yeah, my husband gives me hope. Yeah? Speak to the men, most of them say, my wife is giving me a hard time. Some of you may have a child that's very, very difficult to handle. Some of you may have some type of financial difficulty that you're living through. Some of you may be wanting a nicer car. Some of you now, coming up to December, want to go on a holiday and you're whinging at your husband, make sure you take me. Make sure we go somewhere. Make sure you know we're going out and having fun. Because if we don't have fun, it'll be all over for you. I'm going to give you help. It's a reality. We have to talk. This is the situation that we're in. This is the hardships that we're going through here in this society in Sydney, in Australia, in the West. You don't buy me that handbag, you'll see. Some of you laugh. But it's a reality. People are getting divorced over the most silliest things and silliest situations, subhanAllah. When I came back from Indonesia last, I could not believe how much people have been coming to my office and telling me I want out, my husband, my wife, all this sort of stuff. And I'm thinking, why? Individuals that are living overseas don't have enough money to eat, and you people are complaining over what? This is it's a reality. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a different test in this world here for us. Your spouse, he's going to test you. Your child, he's going to test you. But who's going to be patient? We're the first to get up and jump up. I'm out. I've had enough. I don't want no more. Leave me. It's either this way or the highway. See you later. And so many of you know, maybe through your situation or someone else's situation that's around you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do people think that they'll be left alone because they say we believe? Honestly, do you think just because you say, Wallah, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm going straight to heaven, I'm going straight to Jannah, I've got a gold pass, you think that Allah's not going to test you? He's going to test you because you're not better than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's going to test you because he tested all the prophets, all the companions, they were all tested. So who are you not to be tested? Who are you not to say, Alhamdulillah ya Rabb, for this trial? Who are you not to say that? Sometimes you think, you know what, we're not grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's given us so much. I'm too embarrassed to actually ask you, how many of us actually pay to lose weight, to go to a gym, to get certain foods that we have to eat? We pay excess so that we can lose weight. People overseas are starving. And we have to sit there and pay and go to a gym day and night so we can lose weight. SubhanAllah, we're not happy with ourselves. And we're not happy with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. So we need to be individuals that are thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to be individuals that love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and love the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. There was a man who came up to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said, by Allah, I love you. Meaning he loves the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said to him, be careful with what you're saying. Be careful. You might think, what's so hard about saying, Ya Rasulullah, I love you? Is there anything wrong with that? Does anyone think there's anything wrong? No. Ya Rasulullah, I love you. By Allah, I love you. He said, be careful. This man said it 3 times, and then the Messenger ﷺ said, if you love me, you should be ready for poverty. If you love me, be ready for poverty. Was the Messenger ﷺ rich? No. Was he going through a hard time financially? Yes, even though he could have picked the riches of the world. He could have picked to be the individual that was on top, that had a mansion, that had all the riches. But he didn't choose this. And he said, because poverty comes to those who love me. Poverty comes to those who love me faster than a flood that is flowing towards its destination. Because you have to remember, in this world for a Muslim, this is not your world. This world isn't ours. If you're not struggling, and I'm telling you, if you're not struggling, check your iman. If you're not going through hardship, check your iman. There's something wrong. If your life is just nice and easy, check your iman. Something's going wrong. Because every believer goes through hardship, subhanAllah. And the Messenger ﷺ, he said in another narration, the greatest reward comes with the greatest trial. So if you're an individual that goes through hardship after hardship after hardship and goes through test after test, remember the greatest reward comes with these trials, subhanAllah. This is the way it is. You want Jannah? Jannah is what? What do you understand of Jannah? You think it's just a place that you go in for an hour and come out? You know, you might go on a holiday for 2 weeks and come back and you think, oh, that was great memories. You've taken 1,000,000 selfies of yourself and your family, huh? 1,000,000. Then you flick through them later on the phone. Oh, that was nice days. But Jannah isn't like that. Jannah is a place where you enjoy and you continue to enjoy, and it gets better and better and better. That's what Jannah is. And that's why you need to go through some type of hardship to receive those levels of Jannah. Who knows Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu? Hands up. Who's heard of the companion Abu Hurairah? This man became Muslim 3 years before the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, subhanAllah. 3 years only. This man, one of the most unbelievable things about this individual, this companion radiallahu anhu, he narrated the most ahadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was living with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for 3 years only. How many years have you guys been Muslim? Most of you are saying all my life. Some of you said I'm a revert for 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, correct? Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu was a Muslim for 3 years only, and he narrated the most ahadith than any companion. How many rewards do you think this individual is going to get? Okay, he lived only 3 years with the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he narrates about himself. He talks about himself in a narration in Bukhari. He mentions that was sometimes where people thought he was nuts, he was crazy. And he said, by Allah, I'm not crazy. I wasn't nuts. There was nothing wrong with me mentally, but I was starving. Because he left his house. And he went and he lived in the mosque of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what ended up happening, one day he was sitting there and he would start to recite verses about charity, about giving. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and we all know who Abu Bakr is, correct? We all know who he is? The Khalifa after the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the best person to walk after the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam out of all the companions. He didn't understand what Abu Hurairah was going through. He's mentioning these verses, he's talking about charity, and he just kept moving. Next, Umar radiallahu anhu, Al-Faruq. This man done so much for Islam, subhanAllah, through the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He mentioned the same verses, but he didn't understand. Then your Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam walked past and he understood that Abu Hurairah was starving. He said, come with me with a smile. Now you're thinking about the leader of the Muslims, the leader of Medina. He goes to his house. He asks his wife, what do we have? Remember what we spoke about the other companion, Jabir radiallahu anhu. He had a bit of barley and a sheep. Now the household of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, what do we have to eat? She said, a bit of milk. For how many people do you think? 1 or 2 people. This is the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If I said to you, how much food have you got at home? How many people could you feed, sister? You'd say maybe 10 or 20. How many people could you feed? Oh, an army. How many people could you feed? Just imagine just the pantry we open up with all the junk food. How many people could we feed? If we opened up our freezers, how many people could we feed? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam only had enough milk for 1 or 2 people. He called in Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. He came in. He was holding the milk, and imagine Abu Hurairah, he's starving. Remember, he's going nuts here. He's starving. He said, go and call all the people that are sleeping in the masjid. Go call all of them. Abu Hurairah's heart here dropped. Haram. Allah, he's shaking. But again, look at the obedience that Abu Hurairah had to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, I was upset with his decision, but I would never go against him. You might dislike wearing the hijab. You might dislike doing certain things. Men might dislike wearing the bead. But the companions that were picked because they were special individuals, they would never ever go against the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he went and called all the people from the masjid. And he said, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is calling for you. They came forth. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a smile on his face. A smile. He knew what was going to happen. We're weak. We don't understand. He knew a miracle was about to happen. He said, Abu Hurairah, take the glass and let them drink. Went to the first one, he drank to his full, gave back the cup. Still milk left over. Next companion, same thing. Next companion, same thing. Next companion, same thing. Until every single one of them drank. And there was a cup. And the Messenger ﷺ looked at Abu Hurairah and he said, drink. He drank. He said, drink. Because he wanted to teach Abu Hurairah a lesson here. Drink. And he drank again. Until the Messenger ﷺ told him, drink. And he said, by Allah, I can't fit in anymore. I can't drink anymore, Ya Rasulullah, I'm full. He was starving a second ago. He was worried about that food, that milk. And now he had drank to his full and there's still milk left over. And the Messenger ﷺ took it and drank it. So how far away are we compared to the Messenger ﷺ, and how far are we away from the companions of Rasulullah ﷺ? Have any of you ever, honestly, ever heard or seen anything like that? Anyone, hands up if you have. No one? It happened in the time we bought this masjid. I've said it maybe a few times, some of you may have heard it. It happened to us when we bought the land of this masjid. We were going through hell. Certain groups went against us. We're going through a hard time. Imagine having to collect $1.8 million within 4 months, and we did it by the will of Allah. That's just a miracle on its own. In 4 months, $1.8 million. People talking against us, saying, don't give, don't do this, don't do that. People were jealous, subhanAllah. But it came through. One of the nights of the dinners, and we had a golden rule: no one eats, because we're here to work for the sake of Allah. Let our guests eat. Once the guests go, we'll eat. Honestly, there was about 25 of us. There's only a few plates of food. Now think about it. We thought, Yallah, we'll eat what's here, then we'll go out and eat. By Allah, and I'm swearing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everyone ate to their full. Every one of us ate to our full, and there was still food left over. So don't say it can't happen, it can happen. You might think that's nothing. Wallahi, this is a sign in front of us, but we just have to open up our eyes and minds. Tayyib, when you get to a point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you, and this is something where you want to reach, now you might think, I came to get motivated, I came to get pumped up. But one of the worst things that happens today, we have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote in the likes of Hablas, Muhammad Hablas. Everyone loves his talks, and other du'at al-mashayikh. They come in, they shake the ground underneath you, subhanAllah, from their talk. You think, wow. But what happens when you go out? What happens when you leave the masjid? What happened when you leave the hall? On Friday, the khutbah in Chester Hill, tabarakallah, people were weeping. The brother who gave the khutbah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him, he spoke about the death of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Everyone was in tears. And I said to myself, you watch. We're going to finish that prayer. Everyone's going to get up, and you hear, with the brothers, you hear the clicks of the hands. Hey bro. Yapping, talking, no tasbih, walking out, forgot everything. A second ago you were crying. What's happened to you? A second ago you were crying in tears, hearing how your Messenger ﷺ passed away. And now you're going back to the dunya the way that you were before. You're not here just to listen and to think, oh, that was a great lesson, I love his talks. Well, we don't want this. We want you to change for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're here for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not here for me. You need to come for his sake. One day I'm going to pass away, I'm going to go. Does that mean you don't come back for a lesson? You need to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the sake of worshipping him only. But if you're here for any other reason, understand you may be committing shirk. So once you reach that level of loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, listen to what, there's a hadith Qudsi. Abu Hurairah again narrates that Allah the Messenger said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, I will declare war. Now remember, when you become that person that Allah loves, I will declare war against him who shows aggression to a pious worshipper of mine. Now this means against anyone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will declare war. And the most beloved thing with which my slave comes nearer to me is what I have enjoined upon him, meaning the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made farad. Some people forget the 5 daily prayers. They think, I'll give a bit in charity, that's enough for me. You want to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you do the 5 pillars of Islam. You make sure that you believe in Allah and His Messenger correctly with knowledge. Make sure that you're praying your 5 daily prayers, not here and there, whatever I feel like, I may be driving, I might be in the shopping center. You revolve everything around your prayer. Make sure that you're fasting in Ramadan. Make sure that you're giving your zakat. And if you can afford it, make sure you're going to Hajj once in your life, if it's obligatory upon you. Once these happen, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you. And then the hadith goes on and says, and my slave keeps coming closer to me through nawafil, through sunnah acts, the sunnah prayers, sunnah days of fasting, giving more in charity, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you. Imagine, when your husband says to you, I love you. When I say I love you, I'm shocked he said I love you, huh? Imagine when your husband says I love you. But imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying I love you. You're talking about the creator of the heavens and the earth saying that I love this individual. It's not something light, it's not something easy. It's something major, and you should be fighting for this. And you should be striving for this, subhanAllah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the narration, when I love him, I become his hearing with which he hears. In other words, you're not going to listen to haram. How many of us sit in gatherings with ghiba and namima, people backbiting and slandering? How many of us sit there and just yell, go with the flow? How many of us aren't fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But if Allah loved you, through your actions, you would move away from that. Then you'll become his seeing with which he sees, and his hand with which he strikes, and his leg with which he walks, subhanAllah. And then it goes on and says, and if you become that person Allah loves, if you ask, no matter what it is, if you ask, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him. And if he asks my protection, he seeks refuge, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also protect him, subhanAllah. So you're going from a level to another level. Most of us want to become religious, true? Yes or no? Anyone here not want to become religious? Any of us don't want to become worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Those that truly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love? So we all want to get to that level, but you have to move forward. It's in your hands. It depends on what you want to do. How many prayers do you want to pray? How much more do you want to do? And this is one thing, I feel like I haven't lost hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I've lost hope in the people. The people of Sydney, they're crazy, they're weird. Yes, mashallah, brothers in Abayat, mashallah, they got their thobes above their ankles. Yes, but how much haram? This situation with brothers selling drugs, it's getting out of hand. You have brothers on the front rows that are selling drugs. People committing haram, fornication, all these sort of things with niqabs. Say, how do you know? I know, because individuals have come to me. Coming out and saying, yes, I've done 1, 2, 3. So we have to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. As I said before, the religion of Islam isn't just an outfit that you just put on. It's more than that. And there's a beautiful narration, going back to those individuals that become people that Allah loves. Imagine this. It states in a narration where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a certain individual. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls Jibreel alayhi salam and he tells him to come. And he says, I love so and so, so love him. It becomes an order now. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now is telling him, Jibreel, I love so and so, so love him. So Jibreel loves him. Then Jibreel alayhi salam goes to the inhabitants of the Jannah of heaven and he calls out, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves so and so, so love him. So now the angels loves this individual. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those individuals. Imagine Allah loving you, calling out your name, telling Jibreel to love him, telling the angels to love. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the people in dunya love him as well, subhanAllah. Wouldn't you want to be that person? Leave the people of the dunya, leave the angels, but just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, mentioning your name. Wouldn't you want this? I love so and so, so love him. I love so and so, so love him. So you need to work harder to get to that point. You need to work harder. Wallah, this dunya is going very, very quickly, subhanAllah. Again, it depends on what you want, subhanAllah. So my message basically today to you all is that how much do you want to do? How much you need to that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you? How much more do you want to leave behind you when you get into that grave, subhanAllah? Me first and foremost, before my family, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned what? Qu anfusakum. Did he say save yourself? Or did he say save your family? Or did he say society? Which one first? Yourself. So you have to be number one. And I'm saying to my wife, you have to be number one before anyone. If I'm okay, I can help others. But if I've dropped and my iman has gone and I can't help anyone, I'm not good to myself, my family or society. So I have to ensure me, Abu Ahmad. I have to ensure that me, myself, I want to get somewhere in this life to get to Jannah. I have to work hard. You know, my brother, may Allah have mercy on him, he passed away 2 years ago. He was at the age of 42. How old am I? How old do you think I am?
42.
42. So 2.5 years ago, my brother passed away. And I always think about this and I think, subhanAllah, we didn't know he was going to pass away that day. We were about to meet with him for dinner. My son had gone with him. He just dropped on his bike. Look, that's it, gone. They called us, they said he's injured. We went to the hospital, first hospital. They said no, he's not here, you have to go to Newcastle Hospital and all this sort of stuff. They knew at that time he passed away. We didn't know, they didn't tell us. It was like a dream. It was like, you know, when you turn something onto slow-mo. Some of his friends had reached the same hospital, the first one. And I remember when they told us he's not here, go to the next one. I remember turning around And I remember two of his friends sitting on the floor, and I thought, why are they sitting on the floor? Why aren't they rushing with us? I had something in my heart, subhanAllah. We got to the next hospital after an hour and a half, however long it took. And I remember they told us there, they called us straight in, they knew who we were. We went in, they said he had passed away and he was lying down on the bed, subhanAllah. Now you have to think, you spoke to him the night before, you're about to meet him in a few hours. You know, the person, you never think that your brother, your older brother, just a couple of years older, they're just going to pass away like that. Especially at the age of 42, subhanAllah. We lifted the sheets and you break down, subhanAllah. It's hard. As a human, it's hard, subhanAllah. Seeing your own brother in front of you dead. Seeing his bones broken because he's actually run over by another motorbike, subhanAllah. It's not something that's easy for us. But the reality of this is that we're all going to pass away. Rahmatullah alayh. May Allah have mercy on his soul and all the Muslimin. It's hard. But this is a wake-up call. What have you left behind? I washed him, I shrouded him, and I buried him. And mind you, many years ago, my father also, I made it back from Jordan. He was in hospital, he was sick. That day, you know, sometimes the dead or the people that are dying, they know they're going to pass away. The first time ever, my father said to my mother, you stay. Normally he says, go and rest. That day he said, you stay and the rest go. So we left and my mother said, he recited Quran. You know, they spoke a little bit and he passed away that night, subhanAllah. I remember the following day when I went, I saw him, he was on the bed and I was a lot younger back then. And I'm looking at him, subhanAllah, he's not breathing, his eyes aren't moving. And I'm thinking, subhanAllah, he's there, he's in front of me, I'm touching him, he's cold. And I'm thinking, Ya Allah, subhanAllah, look at this. His body's there, but what's gone out? What's left him? His soul. I can speak, but he can't speak. I can touch him, but he can't touch me back. I can hear what's going around, but he can't hear what's going on. And again, I washed him, I shrouded him, and I buried him. And the hardest part of that time was when the gravel came and they buried him. When they put the dirt on top of his grave, subhanAllah. That was the hardest time for me when my father passed away, subhanAllah. But remember, you're going to pass away as well. You're going to move on as well. And what have you left behind? I'm not talking about my brother, I'm not talking about my father in the sense of what have they left behind. Because one thing I make sure I do whenever I'm doing anything, I make sure I include them in what I'm doing. Me as a son, that's one of the best things a son can do for their father. Helping them out when they're in their grave. Giving a bit of charity on their behalf. Making dua for them. So if you think going to the graveyards and reading Surah Yasin or Fatiha and all this is going to do anything for them, Allah, it's not going to do anything for them. Because the hadith are there. And just remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran, إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is speaking to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And He said, verily you, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, will die. And remember, the best of creation is who? Whom? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is making a promise. He's telling the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that you're going to die and verily they too will die. All of us are going to pass away. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise came true, do you think that the next verse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that mentions كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ, that whatsoever is on it, meaning the earth, is going to perish, do you think that's not going to come true? Do you think that your day is not going to come? Do you think that you're not going to pass away and end up in the grave and the worms and all the insects that eat the bodies, that decay the body, is not going to come to you? And by Allah, the only thing that's going to be left is your deeds that's going to follow you. Because your friends, your family walk away and you see the graveyards now when the people are dying. Hey bro, what are you doing? Haven't seen you for a long time. The cigarettes are out in the graveyard. Oh, you bought a new car, you got a new business. Who cares about you, honestly? Friends and family go. Your husband may remarry. Your children will take your wealth. Then what? Everything that you're fighting for in the dunya, make sure it's a priority for you to get to Jannah. Make sure your priority in your life, whether it's being obedient to your husband, whether it's bringing up your children, whether it's whatever it is in your life, make sure it's a priority. You do it for the sake of Allah so that you can get into Jannah, inshallah. So many of you are thinking, why am I going overseas? Why am I doing this? Aren't you getting tired? Many of you go to my wife and say, go with him. Why, isn't it hard on you? Yes, it's hard. Wallahi, you think traveling, mashallah, your life is easy. Allah, it's hard. You think it's easy sitting in an airplane for so long, getting out, being jet lagged, straight away going out and organising food and giving out, going to areas that are so remote? I enjoy it because it's done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I would never pay money to do it if this was just had. The reward is not in this dunya, the reward is in the hereafter. And my reward is when I see individuals. Wallahi, I visited Indonesia the last trip. A lady who was 93 years old, living on her own in a little shack. 93 by herself. Who hasn't got a fridge here? Anyone? Hands up. Who hasn't got a fridge? So everyone's got a fridge, right? So it doesn't have a fridge. She hasn't got an oven. She hasn't got a microwave. She hasn't got a comfortable bed. She hasn't got anyone with her. She's living on her own in a little shack. And you know what? She's more happy than all of us. By Allah, she's more happy than all of us. Because that's what she knows. That's what she knows. I met a man, 95 I think, and a 73-year-old wife. This man, when we went to his house, he was actually collecting rubbish from the bins. He collects cans and carton and all this sort of stuff, and he recycles it and earns $20 a month. 95 years old. Would you allow your father at 95 years old to work? Seriously. Your father, would you allow him to work that age? No way in the world. 95, he's got 11 children. They can't support him. Why? They're in the same situation. They're trying to earn a living. It's certainly very difficult in some countries. So he's earning a living. My heart broke. We went into his house, and you think, I would never live in here. I wouldn't put my car, my car, I wouldn't put it into that. We came out, we gave him 2 years of his wage. I don't want him to work, so when I go back eventually, we're going to try to help him out even more. I don't want him to work, so when we handed 2 years wage, his wife broke down, she couldn't believe it. He was shocked, he didn't know what to do. I don't think he really speaks much. His emotions were like, you could see the tear going down his eye, but he wouldn't say nothing. But his wife broke down. Why did we do it for? Am I gaining anything? I'm gaining hasanat. I'm changing someone's life. I met with someone the other day who's Somali. He said in Somalia there's that disease of cataract, when people can't see. He said, look, we want to try to do 1, 2, 3. We want to try to get in 2017 people to actually have that operation. About 1,000 people. I said, no problem. He said, but we're going to do one eye. I go, why one eye? He said, it's too costly. I said, how much? He said, each eye is $100. I said, but Allah, we're going to do 2 eyes. Why? Because when that person can see, imagine the dua, imagine the supplication he's going to make for you. Imagine when he opens up the Quran and is able to recite the Quran, how much reward are you going to get? There's a funny story, subhanAllah. There was a man who was blind. And, he was about to get married. And he tried his best to get an operation, or he tried to work out a way that he could get an operation so he could see again. So he got engaged as well, subhanAllah. And he was able to have an operation. After the operation, the man came and he found that his wife, she was blind as well. And he said to her, you know what? I can't live with someone that's blind. He was blind himself. He said, I can't live with someone who's blind. She said, no problem. Allah Hanik, may Allah give you a pious wife who can see and all this sort of stuff. She goes, but I just want you to know, may Allah bless you with those 2 eyes, because those 2 eyes were mine. Look at the difference how some people are, subhanAllah. They were in a situation, they're breaking down, they're crying to Allah, they want to see again. An individual gives their own eyesight to them, or their eyes to them, so they can see again, subhanAllah. And look at how ungrateful this individual is. Look at Bani Adam. Look at the human being, subhanAllah. And inshallah, I just want to share a couple of stories to motivate you, inshallah. You have a lady named Shuraik. She was one of the early companions, subhanAllah, that became Muslim. And she was an individual that didn't sit there and do nothing with her deen, or didn't get out there so that she can gain more reward. So many people of Quraysh became Muslim upon her hand after the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is one great thing for you sisters. Don't think, what can I do for Islam? You can do a lot. You can do so much, but we choose not to. Or we put a cloud in front of our eyes and say, you know what, I can't do anything. She used to go out and preach what? Tawheed. Maybe she didn't have much knowledge, but she knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was true. She truly believed in Him. She truly believed in the Messenger, and she went out and spread that. Until Quraysh, the people of Mecca, caught her. And you know what? They wanted to teach her a lesson. They didn't want her to preach anymore. She was from a tribe outside of Mecca. But her husband was from the people of Quraysh. And they said to her, you know what? If we didn't have an alliance, a treaty between us and your tribe, we would have killed you. So what they did, they got her bareback. Imagine a camel, bareback. They didn't have a saddle on this. And it's proven that if you ride a camel bareback, it's very hard. They made her ride for 3 days and 3 nights in the desert. Every time that there's these people, they got tired, they would rest underneath the shade of a tree, they would drink from the water they had, and they left her on the camel to punish her. Imagine going through this. You're a woman, you're not a man. It's hardship, subhanAllah. Imagine also seeing them sitting down in the shade and drinking while you're starving, you're thirsty, and you're underneath the heat. Maybe you would have lost hope. Maybe you would have lost hope, subhanAllah, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forget anyone. So for 3 days and 3 nights, on the 3rd day, subhanAllah, she said, and she started narrating this, she said on the 3rd day when they went and sat underneath the shade and they were drinking and they were resting, they were sleeping, she was in that situation tied up. She was sitting there and she said, I felt something come from down the heavens underneath my lips and I felt coolness of water. Now you have to understand. Maybe we haven't been put in that position because we're not holy enough, we're not God-fearing enough, we're not doing enough. This dish came and she drank from it and it moved. And look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala treated her. The 2nd time it came and she drank again. It moved away. And the 3rd time she drank, she recovered. She quenched her thirst. She grabbed the bowl and she poured the rest of the water over her as if nothing had happened to her at all. Remember, you know when you're fasting, just imagine in Ramadan, and you grab a cup of water and you drink it quick, your stomach hurts, huh? This lady had not eaten or drinking for 3 days. So look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought this water to her and allowed her to drink in 3 sips. And then allowed her to become quenched. She was refreshed. Subhanallah. And then these people woke up and they looked at her and they saw the water dripping from her. So they saw the water underneath the camel and they're thinking, what happened here? So they said to her, who gave you the water? She said, no one. They said, you're lying. Who gave you the water? She said, no one. You want to hear what happened? This is what happened. And she narrated what happened. She said to them, if you don't believe me, go and have a look at your water skins. It's over there. Look at the water skins. They're still full. No one's touched nothing. They went, they looked, they saw nothing had gone. And imagine these people. They said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Even while she's being tortured, people are reverting to Islam. Just imagine this woman, how much does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love her? Look at what He put her through. She was patient and she's rewarded even more. Again, what are you getting tested with? How much hardship are you really going through? How much do you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? My dear sisters, I'd start with just look at your prayer. Before anything. Before you start giving away your wealth and going home and saying that, you know, I don't want my lounges and this and that. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you, look at your prayers. The most simple thing. Look at your prayers. Concentrate in your prayers. Make sure you're praying 5 times a day. If you're doing it, especially you sisters, look at your family. Look at your children. We're losing them. Honestly, we're losing it. Even sometimes it's not our fault. Sometimes the society that we're living in just draws them. SubhanAllah, it's like a magnet. But do your best. And my dear sisters, unfortunately, the ties are changing. Men are becoming women and women are becoming men. In terms of authority, there's a society, things are changing. Be a support for your husband. He might be doing things wrong. He might be saying things wrong. Be a support for him. Help him and speak to him openly. Tell him, you're the leader of the house and I'll be behind you. I'll back you up. Alhamdulillah, I've got a wife that backs me up. Sometimes it's hard on her, but she helps. Everything I do, she's getting rewarded as well. Don't think it just comes in vain. Be a support for your husband. Try to guide him to the right path. Sometimes it's hard speaking to men these days. My wife, well, she wants more. It's hard. I can't come to lessons anymore. I have to pay the bills. So you try to be their support and ask for less. And the last story I want to just leave you with, inshallah, is of a woman, and she was a special woman, subhanAllah. You know, she was mentioned through history as the coma or the hairdresser of the daughter of Fir'aun. The daughter. Okay, so the daughter of Fir'aun, she used to have a woman that used to comb her hair. They lived in luxury back then. This is how it was. One day she's combing the hair of the daughter of Fir'aun, and the comb fell on the floor. Then she said, Bismillah. Now the daughter of Fir'aun said, my father, meaning Fir'aun, Pharaoh, they used to call him as what? They used to think, or he used to think he was a god, and the people used to worship him as a god. So Bismillah. My father, she said, no, not your father. She said, my Lord and the Lord of your father. Meaning whom? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She said, you know what, I'm going to tell you. She said, go. She didn't mind. So the daughter of Fir'aun went, and she spoke to the father, and he summoned the hairdresser. And he said to her, do you have a Lord other than me? Now you have to think about it. This is just a slave. This is just some woman who's poor, she's a slave, and she's just surviving. This woman had children. He said, do you have a Lord other than me? She said, yes, my Lord and your Lord, Allah. I have another Lord. And he said to her, basically, he's going to just kill her. He's going to sacrifice her. He's going to slaughter her. He's going to punish her for the words that she was saying. Because anyone that went against a tyrant, what do? They punish them. Not only punish them in private, but publicly. So anyone else that goes against me, they will learn as well. No one can say that against me. I'm the Lord of the Lords. So he called for, they used to call it a baqarah, a huge pot. Some people say that used to be a shape of a cow. They used to put not water in there, they used to put oil. What happens when you heat up oil? Anyone used to work in KFC? You guys fry chicken at home? Yeah? What happens when you boil the oil to a certain temperature? It shrivels up the meat, it burns the skin. If you leave it in there long enough, what happens to all the meat? So the Pharaoh got this baqarah, he put a huge fire underneath, and he said, I'm not only going to kill you, but I'm going to kill your children as well. So he wanted to punish her. He didn't kill the mother first, one by one, and mind you, one of the children were a little baby. A little baby that she was holding. One by one, in the hot oil. Do you think she broke? For us, just imagine your children. May Allah protect them. Imagine your children. One by one were being slaughtered in front of you. Until all of them died except for the baby in your hand. Imagine the youngest is the most precious. Look at the lady here at the back. She's got her young daughter or son. Imagine having to go into this hot pot, this boiling water with your child. She hesitated, and then the child, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed the child to speak. Imagine your baby talking to you now. Saying that the punishment of this dunya is nothing compared to the punishment of the hereafter. It's nothing. So the lady got enough courage to jump into this, and she died. Again, I'm not telling you to kill yourselves. Again, I'm not asking you to throw your children into boiling water. Again, I'm not telling you to donate everything that you have. All I am telling you to do is to become God conscious. To remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout your days. Remember every test that you get, if you're patient, Allah will reward you. No matter what you're going through. You might think, Allah, I can't do this anymore. You can do this. Because Allah has said what in the Quran? لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. That Allah does not burden the soul more than it can handle. So you can handle this. Whatever you're going through, you can handle it. But you're getting rewarded. So say Alhamdulillah Ya Rabb. And remember, even after this test, another one will come forth. After every test, another one will come. Until an individual, and this is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, until an individual will stand over a grave and wish that he was in that grave. We have to be patient, and we have to learn how to be patient. So inshallah, these are the words I'll leave you with. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you all. And don't forget, tomorrow we got a beautiful story of an individual who only passed away roughly about 3 years ago. If you can bring a friend, bring a friend. Because these are the people that we want to follow. Not individuals of the street. Not the people who have blown up their lips and fashion the designers or models or all this sort of rubbish that we're following. They're not the individuals we want to follow. Remember the grave. You want to remember anything? Remember the grave. Remember your grave. Some of the companions, you know what they used to do? They would actually dig, in some of the Salaf, they would dig a grave inside their homes and sit in it so that they can remember the day of their death. Don't leave it till then. Don't leave it until the day you're dying thinking, oh, I stuffed up. What have I done? I've neglected myself. Don't wait for then. If you're not covered, make sure you're covered. If you're doing something haram, move away from it. Move closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can do so much. Wallah, you can do so much. You might think, I'm poor, I can't do much, I can't be like Abu Bakr and give, I can't be like this person and travel, I can't do this and that. You can do as much as you can. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only wants you to do what you're capable of doing. That's it. So do as much as you can do. Maybe it might just be prayers, Nawafil prayers. Maybe you might be just be able to fast, one day on, one day off. It might be something like that. You might be able just to smile in the face of your brother and sister. Look, there's so many ways of getting rewards, subhanAllah, but we're neglectful because we're drowning too much in this world. Wallahi, that's our problem. We've got too much. Our problem these days is that we have too much. Imagine you have a car, maybe a 1980 model or 1990 model, say 2000 model. Okay, it's time to sell it because it just doesn't drive anymore. It's rusted, it's breaking down. You're driving always. You have to call your husband, come. The car's broken down. Imagine your husband sold that car and then bought you a 1970 model. What would you say to him? Huh? Alhamdulillah. I don't think Alhamdulillah will come out $1 million else, huh? You'll be telling him off. What have you done? Give me a better car. The other one broke down. Now you buy me an older model. Think about yourself. Don't give yourself an older model. Move forward. Give yourself more hope. Get yourself a Mercedes. Get yourself an Audi. Get yourself the best car that you want. Not in terms of dunya, but in the hereafter. Why take a level of Jannah that's low when you get a level that's high? The only thing that you have to do is work hard. You want a really good car in this world? Don't you work hard? Then you tell your husband, let's save. Let's not spend as much. Let's miss out on this holiday this year because we want to save to buy a nicer car. True or not? Same thing with this world. Work a little bit harder. And by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala you can get there. But you have to trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you need to know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. You need to. Many of us are saying we're Muslims, but Allah, you don't know who Allah is. You don't know. You don't trust Him. You don't put your tawakkul in Him.